Howdy brewers. For those of you who haven't seen me keg one of my beers, so this is a simple 25 litre wide mouth food grade plastic fermenter, or it's a drum, but I've turned it into a fermenter, and this is an old bottling valve from when I used to bottle. I still do sometimes, but this is an old one, cut in half, thrown in some, I think it's 10mm tubing, and I'm not sure if you'll be able to see, but it minimises oxidation when the tube goes right down to the bottom, because only the surface level of the beer comes into contact with the oxygen before we pressure seal it and force out all of the oxygen when we keg. So this is the first beer. This is a James Squire Pilsner clone, and this is as you saw in the video, or if you haven't seen it, I, instead of just going from the hot wort through the counterflow chiller into the fermenter, I did I ran it through the counterflow chiller but back into the Grainfather to be able to get a cold break inside to see if I got a cleaner wort, especially what's going into the keg. So this has been in the keg about 3 weeks at 12 degrees. Let's just see what it does. A little bit of gunk at the start. Alright, that looks pretty clear. Alright, so I'll fill this keg now, and you'll see me tasting in a few seconds. Howdy brewers. Well, here it is. The second attempt at the James Squire Pilsner clone. Now, clarity is really good, and it's earlier than normal for the way I brew and everything, and I am going to put it down to, as you saw in the video, I ran the counterflow chiller back into the hot wort and chilled it inside the Grainfather rather than chill it into the fermenter, so that I think separated more of the proteins. So this is still a pretty young beer. It's only about 4 weeks old. I had it in the fermenter for 3 weeks and then put it in the keg for the last week, and fermented at 12 degrees for those 3 weeks. I didn't ramp it up for a diacetyl rest or anything. It wasn't needed, I don't think. I had no diacetyl during the tastings as it fermented and my gravity readings. But in terms of the finished product, I bought myself the equivalent of a James Squire glass, which I think is an Oxford. Just couldn't help myself. So yeah, I adjusted the recipe slightly, a little bit more Munich. So it was a 50-50 ratio, or a 1-to-1 ratio of Pilsner and pale Munich malt, and I adjusted the brewing salt. So I added a little bit more calcium chloride and a tiny little bit of gypsum to try and get a bit more hop aroma, and this is the finished product. So I'm not sure how clean my glass is. That's why the head hasn't stayed. Granted, it's a Pilsner, so I don't think the head is always persistent in a Pilsner. At least I can't recall the commercial version having a persistent head. Still a little bit there, but anyway. Well, the last time I had one, because you can't buy them where I live anymore, but the last time I had one was a few weeks ago when I was travelling, and it smells exactly the same. I'm really surprised. If they were beside each other, I really don't think I'd be able to tell the difference. The colour, I think this is still slightly lighter in colour. but that can all depend on the darkness of that Munich malt, I think. But because the smell is right, and I think with more Munich malt I'd be able to smell more of the malt, because I get really good Saaz hop aroma, that peppery, earthy aroma, and a tiny hint of the Motueka, so a little bit of lime, and behind all that is a light, really light malty sweetness, and a little bit of bread. That is it. I think that is a James Squire 4 Wise Pilsner. That is exactly as I remember it. Wow. Yeah, there is. You get that unmistakable sort of Saaz, spicy, peppery, earthy flavours. You get a touch of that sort of soury lime from the Motueka. You get a light maltiness, and also you get that slight little bit of like bread, doughy flavour as well. And there's not a hint of diacetyl in it, or DMS. Not a hint of DMS at all. The head's sort of staying at that level, so it hasn't reduced since there. So, you tell me what's going on. I don't know. I think it's just the glass. That's all I think it is. But this, very happy. I'll be chilling because I use a hop spider. I don't worry about the hops clogging my drain filter. My pump screen. So I will continue to do that, because I think I've got a clearer beer. And for this stage, I mean, the beer will always clear up the longer I leave it in the fridge, in the fermenter, but this, or in the keg as well. But this is much clearer in a much shorter time frame. I can see my fingerprints through the glass. Alright, well, that's no more. I can't wait to have more of this. So, till I see you again, happy brewing.